Hold up. Wait a minute.
This is Carla Renata, aka the Curvy Critic, and I shoot straight from the hip.
Yeah, you know I'm always shooting straight from the hip.
Let's take a trip around the curve. Hey, everybody. Oh my goodness, it's been like 5,000 years. Let me move this over a little bit. It's been 5,000 years since I've been here, but your girl has been busy. Turn the light. There we go. I've been really super, super, super busy. So let's just get right into it, shall we? I want to pay acknowledge to Brandon, who always pops by. And he says, oops, by the way, Wildwood looks amazing. I'll get into that in a second. So when I tell you there are so many things that went down, I went to D23. Let me look at my list. I went to D23. There were a bunch of festivals that were happening. There was the the Televerse festival that was happening. I was at the AFCA Awards. There were a bunch of announcements. There were concerts, princess concerts. There were picket lines. There was the Martha's Vineyard Film Festival. There was the National Association of Broadcast Journalists conference, and there was Broadway Fest. So before we get into all that, let's address a couple of things that I heard throughout the week. So before I get into D23, I want to talk about NABJ and Stephen A. Smith, because I think it warrants some conversation. So this is the thing. Stephen A. Smith is known for being very bombastic and very loud and proud and wrong with all of his comments. And when they had a thumbs down award at the NABJ conference this year. He was one of the many people that was awarded that great distinction. His feelings and his panties were all in a twist because the Black journalists gave him the thumbs down award. Now, what's interesting about that is that there's a certain guy over on Pennsylvania Avenue who talked loud and proud and wrong about him. And Stephen A. Smith's response to that comment, in which he was called stupid, wasn't half as bombastic and loud and proud and wrong as his response to NABJ. It be our own people. It be our own people. I need for him to decide what side of the fence he's going to be on. I don't have a dog in the race. I don't. But as a journalist and as a Black female journalist and as a group of people that he has called out repeatedly, knowing that he comes from a family where he has a bunch of sisters and he has professed his love for his sisters and his mother ad nauseum, the fact that he would be so loud and wrong against his own people when this person over here literally called you out of your name, didn't give you a thumbs down, but literally called you out of your name and attached some adjectives to that name, is just ridiculous. So that's what I want to say about that. The other thing I want to talk about is D23. Now, I was at D23 all last weekend, I should say. And I was reminded, when I was talking about the coverage of it, I was like, what do I want to say? What do I want to, I don't want to just report what happened at D23, blah, 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 blah. Who cares? What I thought about was my own personal Disney journey. And my own personal Disney journey started when I went to D23 for the first time. I think this was like 2016. And that's Ashley. She is now a staple of the D23 expos. She's there for every expo. She moderates numerous shows and she's freaking awesome. And then I was reminded about my own personal Disney connection. So for those of you that don't know, my own personal Disney connection starts with the fact that I was on Shake It Up on the Disney Channel as a Disney mom. And then I was again in the Disney family when I became part of the cast of The Lion King, playing Shenzi, the part that Whoopi Goldberg does in the film. I did in the stage production when it sat at the Pantages Theater in Los Angeles for 3 years. So I just I was very emotional for some reason this year at D23 when I thought about my own personal Disney connection. And my other part of the Disney connection is that I know this young man right here. This is Floyd Norman. Floyd Norman was one of the only or one of the first Black animators to work with Walt Disney himself. He personally worked and learned from working with Walt Disney. That is his beautiful wife, Adrienne. I love them so much. And whenever I see them, it's a party waiting to happen. So that was us at D23. And then while I was at D23, these were the things that I love. So they did this mural outside that they started at the beginning of D23 to celebrate the 250th anniversary of America. And I'm sure by the time it was the conference or festival was over, they had finished this. But I thought it was so beautiful, and I wanted you guys to see it in its infancy stages. I also got my boogie on. There I go. Getting my boogie on. Always got to take the picture at D23. Always got to do it. And then after I did, let me see, what else did I do at D23? Oh, yes. And then I ran into these lovely people who they were so awesome. And they're really great, great, great artists, great influencers, great reporters. They are great in the space, and they are all people of color. If you recognize them, follow them and let them know that I said to check them out, because I love them oh so much. And I'll give you their handles and everything by the end of the show. While I was at D23, I love animation. And so I stopped by this panel about the Proud family, where it was being moderated by Kyla Pratt, who plays Penny Proud, and Bruce W. Smith, who is the animator, and Ralph Farquhar, who wrote the script for the Proud family. And Bruce was sitting there and drawing some things in real time. I thought I had one of those drawings up here, but I must have not uploaded it by mistake. Oops, oh well. But that was it for the D23 Expo. But what I wanted to address about D23 was the fact that there was all this controversy. They had a Disney princess concert. I'll pull that picture up. They had a Disney princess concert. And those are the 3 Black Disney princesses from left to right. That's Anika Noni Rose, who voiced Tiana in The Princess and the Frog. There's Brandy, who did a live action version of the Cinderella, Richard Rogers and Hammerstein's Cinderella. She did that live action version on television, which was produced by Deborah Martin Chase and Whitney Houston, 2 other women of color, who also produced The Princess Diaries that starred Anne Hathaway and made her a star, just in case you didn't know. Now you know. But back to this princess concert. And last but not least, on the far right is Halle Bailey, who played Ariel in the Little Mermaid live action. I love this picture because we very rarely see women of color in the Disney zeitgeist in terms of being princesses. So I love this picture for that reason. What I didn't love was all the discourse that came afterwards, where people were saying that Brandy wasn't a real princess. People that are saying that, or that even let that tumble out of their mouth, probably didn't even see Brandy in Cinderella. And FYI, and not really, Brandy was the first Black woman to inhabit that role on television. So to me, Brandy is a princess. So shut your mouth and go sit in a corner and have several seats. In addition to that, I was a huge fan of the Rodgers and Hammerstein Cinderella that starred Leslie Ann Warren, where she was picked by Richard Rodgers himself to play Cinderella on television opposite Stuart Damon, who was her Prince Charming. He also played Alan Quartermain on General Hospital. He is now deceased. Leslie Ann Warren is still living. She was nominated for an Oscar for playing Norma and Victor Victoria opposite Julie Andrews. So that's the Cinderella thing from the white point of view. From the Black point of view, is Brandy, point blank, period, shut up. Okay, there's that. So I just had to address that. And y'all know I shoot straight from the hip. I'm not an angry person. I'm not. But I have to tell you the facts, because there's a lot of people out here disseminating false information or half truths or half information. And you can count on me to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you the truth, and I'm going to tell you the facts, because I went to journalism school for that at Howard University, and I shoot straight from the hip. I'm the Curvy Critic. Okay? Okay. Now, having said that, let me digress. I celebrated one of my good girlfriends, Yvette Nicole Brown celebrated her birthday, so we celebrated her. And then I also was over at the AFCA Awards, where I was supposed to just be hanging out and, doing my thing. But I ended up presenting quite a few awards for a variety of reasons. Always happy to help, though. And then I ran into this young lady right here. This young lady right here, I love her so much. Malaya, she won the Tony for Hell's Kitchen, and she now is starring in the reboot of A Different World on Netflix. And I saw her, and she was like, "Girl, I know who you are." I was like, "Oh, no, you didn't." But I was very, very excited about that. And then, of course, the big news to come out of, I'm going to flip back to D23 real quick. The big news to come out of D23 was that this young lady here is playing Storm. And there was a whole bunch of discourse around that too. Shut up, stop it. She playing Storm, ain't nothing you can do about it. Her name is Maya, and she will be playing Storm. And these Disney legends were honored. Lin-Manuel Miranda, Alan, let me get rid of this banner so I can read his actual name. Well, I'll get back to him. Chris Berman, who is a sportscaster, Jerry Bruckheimer. Jerry Bruckheimer has brought us every action picture you've seen for the last 20 years. Susan Egan, who was the original voice of Belle in the animated film version of Beauty and the Beast. Eric Goldberg has his very first character that he animated for Disney was the genie in Aladdin. Can you imagine his very first job at Disney? And he is drawing the genie in Aladdin that was voiced by the late Robin Williams. Anne Hathaway, like, how could she not be a Disney legend? She's in The Princess Diaries and The Devil Wears Prada. Come on, shut up. And then Bob Iger, who has now been replaced by Josh D'Amaro. Bob Iger has stepped down to do some other things, and he's got some shenanigans going. We'll talk about that another time. Kim Irvine is an Imagineer. If you don't know what an Imagineer is, Imagineers are responsible for all those beautiful, exciting rides that you ride at Disneyland. So she was honored for her work in that regard. The Jonas Brothers were honored as Disney legends because they blew up Disney at the time that they were on it on a full-time basis. Dwayne Johnson, aka The Rock, he voiced a character in Moana, and he is being honored for the many Disney films he's done lately that have culminated in millions, probably billions of dollars for the company. And Alan Tudyk, who also has done a gazillion different voices for the Disney company. Now, I will say this, that last but not least, the last little bit of discourse that came out of D23 was the fact that my friend Jim Cummings was not being honored. Jim Cummings has voiced, I want to say, 1,500 characters in Disney projects, from Winnie the Pooh to Lord knows what. And I've personally worked with him, and he's a personal friend of mine. Disney needs to rectify that and give Jim Cummings his upcomings, no pun intended. All right. So now we're done with D23. I told you what I did the week before. We talked about the Disney legends, and I just got to show you this thumbs down graphic about Stephen A. Smith, because I thought that was absolutely hilarious, but was not happy with the way he handled that, as were a lot of people. The festival that I was telling you about is called Broadway Fest. And what they do is they bring out a bunch of legends to sing songs. It's like Comic-Con, but for Broadway geeks is what it is. And they brought out Audra McDonald. And of course, her and Brian Stokes Mitchell, they starred in Ragtime on Broadway. And then they did it again at Broadway Fest, where they reprised Wheels of a Dream and sang that together. The Martha's Vineyard Film Festival went down. It just ended this past weekend. It was very successful. They had lots of great things coming out of that. You can go to their site to see more about it. Televerse, which is a really big thing. They call it Television Outside the Box. It's kind of like Paley Fest, but on a different type of scale. And if you're not familiar with either one of those, let me just pop and tell you what they are. Televerse and Paley Fest are where they bring casts together of TV shows, and they have a discussion either about their characters, the show, or how the shows are being curated and produced. So that's what Televerse is. And then, of course, your girl is getting ready to go back where? To this festival and this festival, which is what Telluride. Last but not least, and when I come back next week, or yeah, am I coming back? Yeah, I'll have to come back next week because I'll be going to Telluride right after that. So, last but not least, your girl went with this lovely lady, Miss Angelique Jackson. We went to the 25th anniversary screening of The Fast and the Furious, which is back in theaters today. It's back in theaters right now today. All right, I think that brings you up to speed on everything that I did. So now let's get into it. I said I was going to talk about this movie a few weeks ago, but I didn't. It's called The Last House. It's currently streaming on Netflix. It's directed by Louis Lederer. It stars Grace Lee Wagnamara, and playing the kids, not necessarily in this order, are Noah Alexander Sonowski, Emma, is it, I want to say Hong, but it might be Ho. I don't want to say her name wrong. Let me find out what her name is. Yeah, it's Hong. It's Emma Hong. Why did I truncated her name? So it's Emma Hong and Riley Chung and Gabriel Barbosa. They all play the kids. Now, what happens in this particular film was fascinating to me. Imagine if it was COVID and you decided you wanted to go out and just get a breath of fresh air or walk around the block for a minute with your mask, and you go to open the door and the door is locked and you can't get out. Okay, you're thinking maybe the wood's swollen, maybe, something happened and you can't, get out of the door for that moment. I've actually had that happen where I've tried to unlock my door and the door wouldn't unlock for whatever reason. The weather was doing some weird things with the lock, and we had to put oil in it. It had rusted or something, and it allowed me not to be able to turn the lock. And I'm not gonna lie, I panicked. So imagine if you're in your house and you can't get out of the house, what kind of panic that incites. Well, that's what happens to this family of four. That's all of a sudden they sealed inside their home. They have no way out. They got to work together to survive. Now, they're not only locked in the house for a day, not a week, not a month, but 5 years. 5 years they're in this house, only to discover that their resources are dwindling down and that there's this mysterious threat that's looming over the house that's keeping them trapped. Now, what I'll say is, it's been in theaters for a minute, so this won't be a spoiler for anybody, but child, the looming threat was an octopus, and the octopus was looking a lot like one of the octopus people from Pirates of the Caribbean. So I was just like, really? So y'all been locked in the house all this time through an octopus? Okay. But what I will say is, the premise isn't what I loved as much. I did love the direction. I did love the cinematography. I did love the production design for that movie is insane. But what I loved more than anything else was the chemistry and the acting between the cast. Grace Lee and Wagner Moura, I need y'all to do another film together. You were absolutely fantabulous on a level that I can't even begin to describe. It was wonderful. I mean, I can't even begin to describe how wonderful you are. It does have some pacing issues. The film does have some pacing issues, but if I'm being honest, The Last House is something that, you might want to check out, because it's short. It's like really close to a tight 90, as one of my good girlfriends would say. But it's a great film in that regard, that is short, and that we have this family playing these people and they are just doing all the things. And I'd be lying if I didn't say it made me wonder about, if something apocalyptic did happen, are any of us really prepared for that? And that, more than anything, is what The Last House does. It makes you think about how prepared you are, and if you're not, how prepared you need to be. All right, now let's get into The End of Oak Street. This film right here, it's Anne Hathaway with a gun. I'm just saying, Anne Hathaway got a gun. It's The End of Oak Street. It's in theaters right now. It's directed by David Robert Mitchell, and it stars Anne Hathaway and Ian McGregor. And it follows another suburban family whose neighborhood is mysteriously transported from 1982 into the age of dinosaurs. So again, imagine if you were at home and you walked outside the door and all of a sudden you see a dinosaur traipsing down the street after you've seen a big flash of light. It was a lot. A lot of critics loved it and they raved about it and they were like, oh, it's Jurassic Park done better, da 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 da. There were a lot. You can tell that David Robert Mitchell is a Spielberg fan. There's many a ode to E.T. and Spielberg-esque things in the film, especially a moment where the kids are riding on bicycles up the street. We see that in E.T. when they're running away trying to save E.T. and get him to safety. And there's a couple of other moments like that that I won't get into. But what I will say is that this movie for me, I wasn't as crazy about it as everyone else. It was a little bit of a slow crawl for me. And again, just like the end of Oak Street, for me, this film lived and died on the performances of Anne Hathaway and Ian McGregor and the rest of the cast. And that's all I really have to say about it. It's that kind of film. All right. So I have a bunch of interviews for you guys today. I have interviews for the Cookie Queens documentary. I have interviews from Women in Blue or Las Azules. I have an interview from The Magic Faraway Tree with Andrew Garfield and Claire Foy, who are pictured over there to your far right. I'm going to get into Coyote versus Acme, which I absolutely loved. And I have Tommy Davidson from the Varnell Hill Show, which will be coming to Paramount Plus. So let's get into the first interview, shall we? Let me go back up here. So, Cookie Queens. I love me some Girl Scout cookies. I mean, who doesn't love a good Girl Scout cookie? Everybody loves a Girl Scout cookie. Well, I talked to this director, Alysa Nahmia. She is the director of Cookie Queens. And the Cookie Queens documentary, I saw this months ago, so I won't go into what it's about, but it basically is... Alysa followed 4 different troops for a period of time, and she centers the story around the competition part of the Girl Scout cookie sales, but also how this billion-dollar company is able to survive just mostly off of these cookie sales that happen once a year. But she gets into the deep dive of the families, these 4 families, and there's 4 different families from all different types of vantage points. One little girl is diabetic. One is a legacy scout. One is also a legacy scout, but she's like a top earner in the organization. But I won't talk any more about it. I'll let Alysa tell you more. So take a look and listen to this interview with Alysa Nahmia for Cookie Queens. I could have cared less about them cookies. And I remember my mother being stressed out about the cookies. I was more interested in getting all the badges. And I was like 1 badge short. And the only badge I never got was the camping badge because I don't do outdoors. That's not my jam. I don't do that.
That's fun. Well, I think that's really important in the sense that people can understand that Girl Scouts is much more than the cookie sale, although of course our film focuses on the cookie sale. And for me, that was more about getting into a bigger, like as a microcosm of thinking more broadly about girlhood in America and about how girls are taught about our value and our place in the economy. But so many women were Girl Scouts and it's a really impactful organization.
On the other side of this, do you think that Girl Scouts is still invoking all of those things about entrepreneurship, friendship, girlhood, and healthy competition?
You know, I think that as we see in the film, these girls, when their troops are run by really enthusiastic and passionate and skilled troop leaders, a lot can happen at that volunteer level that's really positive for them. To have a safe space for sisterhood and friendship and ambition. And then I think that, you know, entrepreneurship is an interesting thing because it's inherently, it means going out on your own and doing something. And for me, the girls are learning skills that could be applicable to entrepreneurship, but the cookie sale itself, they are working for a big company. They're not actually doing their own thing. Of course, they have to do the stand and all of that, but like it's very prescribed how much they sell for and what the product is and all of that. And they're working for a big company. And so, you know, arguably you work for any big company and you could translate that into our entrepreneurship, right? And so I think it's an interesting, like, it's a really interesting way to think about, like, how are girls learning about the economy and business and what's fair and not fair, and asking some really important questions that they can carry into their lives and that we as adults can take seriously, because they're really skilled at it and they're very smart.
And I really applauded you for showing the different ways that the parents were dealing with it, because you had the one set of parents where it was a financial hardship for them to do it. You had the other set of parents that were legacy people. You had this mom who was like, we gotta go, you can't give up. And then my favorite one was Shannon.
Shannon Elizabeth,
Shannon was hilarious. But the other one that was funny was Ava, because Ava was I think she was type 1 diabetes.
Ara. She has type 1 diabetes.
She was type 1 diabetes. Her slipping those cookies every once in a while made me so happy. But it just was like, she was like, yeah, I know I could get sick, but this tastes really good. I kind of loved her for that. But what I really want to talk to you about is, how did you come upon these 4 girls? Like, there's a lot of Girl Scouts all over the country. Why did you land on these 4?
Yes. Well, we did a very grassroots casting effort and just getting the word out in parenting groups and community groups, and did, my casting producer interviewed hundreds of kids and families on Zoom, and I interviewed dozens, and then I went and visited, and I was looking for kids where I wanted different walks of life, different geographies, different types of troops, and also kind of different types of love. I didn't want families where the parents did all of it for the kids or they were cruelly pushing them to do anything. I wanted to get at that tension that you were talking about, where, like, how much pressure is too much when your kid is really good at something or ambitious and actually likes it when they're successful, but sometimes has days when they're like, I'm done. Because I've experienced that as a kid and as a parent. And I think that was interesting. So I wanted kids that had an inner journey, not just the outer journey of the cookie sales and the goal, but it was also about something like you were saying, whether they want to be like their older sister, or they have economic challenges as a family that they're using the cookie sale to do that. Those speak to bigger issues in our culture and in our economy, where families do have to sacrifice sometimes if they want their kids to have certain experiences, whether it's summer camp or college or healthcare. These are real challenges that families face, and the Girl Scout cookie sale is sort of a very, for me, it was an entertaining and sort of interesting way to look at some of those bigger questions.
So, speaking of bigger questions, we're living in a world right now for kids where technology, you can drive down any neighborhood in America and you won't see children outside playing. You won't see them interacting. They all do it on a screen or some type of device. Do you think that the parents getting these young women involved with the Girl Scouts and the Girl Scout cookie sales is their way of attempting to keep them in the lane of human contact? Because that literally is gone.
They are creating spaces, in real time, in real physical world, where girls can be with each other. They can have trusted adults, and they can grow together, and they can make mistakes together, and they can have adventures together in the physical real world. And that is so valuable. And that can happen through Girl Scouts. It can also happen, like, I coach my kids' soccer teams, and we travel together and we do things together, like when they were younger. And I think that it can happen through music, it can happen through many different activities, and Girl Scouts is one of them. That I love that it also is a women's space, and it always has been. And so that's powerful. And I think, the cookie sale in particular too, when girls are getting out and selling in person, they're encountering, as you see in the movie, some pretty very real world experiences, the things that people talk to them about, the things that people say to them or feel entitled to say, especially to the older girls. They're learning about what it's like to be in the world in a woman's body and looking however they look in the world, which can be different depending on how you're seen.
What is your favorite Girl Scout cookie? I know what mine is. It's the Samoa. It's the little coconut with the chocolate. I will eat boxes of those, and that's why I don't order them. Because I literally ordered 4 boxes and ate all of them by myself. So sad.
Well, people can always donate just to the troop. They don't have to buy the box of cookies.
Oh,
And
that's
then
good to
all
know.
the money goes to the troop if you just want to make a donation to the troop. So if you see Girl Scouts and you don't want to eat those calories or those Samoas, that's an option. I love Thin Mints. I love Samoas. I also became a fan of the lemonade, which is if you like lemon, it's worth the $6 to try it.
Okay, I'm gonna take you up on that one, and
Yeah.
maybe I'll just try 1 box.
And I'm so excited for people to see Cookie Queens. We're in theaters August 7th nationwide. And, you know, whether you like the cookies, whether you were a Girl Scout or not, again, I think the themes will resonate if you've been a child, which all of us have, if you've been a parent, which many of us have. And I'm excited for that, and for young people to come out to theaters too.
I'm excited for it too. Thank you so much for giving me a slice of your time today. I was really excited about this film out of Sundance, and I'm elated that people will finally get to see it.
Thanks, Carla. Well, once a Girl Scout, always a Girl Scout, right?
That's right. That's right. All day long. Thank you. Yes, once a Girl Scout, always a Girl Scout. Cookie Queens is in theaters now. And side note, it is produced by Archie Productions, which is the company run by the Princess and Prince, Meghan, and Harry. So again, it's called Cookie Queens. You don't want to miss it. It was very interesting. I loved it very, very, very much. Let's get into this film called The Rivals of Emziah King. So I'm a huge Matthew McConaughey fan. This film is in theaters now. It has a limited theatrical release. It's a Black Bears production film, and it's directed by Andrew Patterson. It stars Matthew McConaughey, Kurt Russell, Angelina Looking Glass, Cole Sprouse, and Rob Morgan. What I want to say about this film is that what you think it's going to be about is not what it is. It fooled me. I thought, oh, this is going to be about this is going to be a film about some musicians in Oklahoma. Yeah, that's not what it was. So this film that stars Matthew McConaughey, what I'll say about it is that it's set in like the rural backwoods of Oklahoma too. And it follows Emziah, who is an anchor of his community and a beekeeper. So his farm that he has in Oklahoma, he makes bees. And the thing that was fascinating to me about this is that my great grandmother was a beekeeper. Her family were beekeepers, ironically enough, in Oklahoma. So I was fascinated for the film for those reasons. In this film, McConaughey oversees this premier honey making operation, and he leads a bluegrass band. So you think it's going to be about this bluegrass band, but it's not. And then he reunites with Kateri, who's played by Miss Looking Glass, Angelina, who is his estranged former foster daughter, and she returns to his life after many years. That story part of it could have been tightened up a little better, I thought. But then what happens is, like with any company, there's always somebody else with more money and more power that's trying to push you out. So there's a situation where some honey gets stolen. They come to Emziah to ask him if he, can try to figure it out. And the one thing I will say about this movie is that it gives you an inside look into how bees make honey, what the hierarchy is of the bees, when you're trying to figure out what is in a barrel that contains the honey, how you go about getting it out. All of that was super fascinating to me. That whole process around honey in every iteration of its life. That was very, very fascinating to me. The acting in this film is superb. Matthew McConaughey, I mean, he's always good. Doesn't matter what the film is. And he's the king of a monologue. That boy can do a monologue like nobody I've ever seen in my entire life. The music, that bluegrass music, I want the soundtrack. I need the soundtrack to The Rivals of Emziah King. I need that like yesterday. It's a little too long though. It could have been maybe 30 minutes shorter, but I still liked it, but it could have been about 30 minutes shorter. And I love that they made Angelina Looking Glass like this native female vigilante. I loved that about her, because we often see these types of films and it's always a bunch of guys who are, going against each other or have beef with each other. We never see a woman outsmart the men in these types of circumstances. And I love that for her. But what I loved about the film the most is that when Isaiah meets his untimely death, he has left the bee farm to Kateri, who's played by Looking Glass. And what the theme of this film is for me was when that moment happened, the rest of the film, because Matthew is in a very short portion of the film, the rest of the film hinges on Angelina Looking Glass and her acting prowess. But what it tells me is parents spend their whole life preparing us as their children to live a life without them. They prepare us, you know, to get ready for school, to go to schools without them, to get on a plane and go to another country or another city without them. And in this film, his character, Isaiah King, prepares Kateri to run this business without him. And that, for me, sealed the deal. So again, it's called The Rivals of Isaiah King. It is in theaters now and limited release, and you'll really, really love it. And this is Matthew McConaughey in that role of Isaiah King. All right, now on to the next interview, baby. Let's get down and dirty with that. So what I have for y'all, I have Las Azules. So this is a series that is streaming on Apple TV Plus. It's in its second season. It's about the very first female police team in Mexico City. I didn't even know that existed or that was a thing. And this is a Spanish speaking show, so there are subtitles, be forewarned, but the subtitles don't distract from the action, and it definitely doesn't distract from the performances and the subject matter that you are dealing with in this series. It's really great. But I did have a chance to sit down and talk to the director and some of his stars, and I want you to take a look and a listen so they can tell you more about it. The cast and director of Las Azules, which is now streaming on Apple TV Plus. No problem. I'm Carla Renata, the Curvy Critic. Hi, Fernando. How are you?
Hey, Carla, how are you? What a beautiful space.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I really love this series. It really warms my heart because I'm starting to see a lot of procedural dramas on television right now with Furious and High Potential, which just got canceled, Lucky, Ride or Die, a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm loving seeing women at the forefront. But what I'd like to talk to you about is there's this one line at the end of the last episode where the character says to Barbara, there are two wolves that live in all of us. One is ferocious and one that is generous. Which wolf do you think lives inside your personality to be able to create this type of series?
You know, I think it's interesting that you mentioned that because I think as a writer, you have to feed both wolves. And I've for sure gone to some dark places to be able to write some of these stories, and especially to be able to write, you know, more than the Azules, because the Azules are like already like ingrained in my heart. I think some of the male characters that do some things that are extremely destructive, I think that was harder for me to write, you know, to go to those places and write about the people that destroyed our country for a time, and that stood against any kind of joy or happiness or progress. So I think that's at the end of the day, I got home and I made sure to feed the right one.
I think that's one of the main traits of Angeles, is that she really has no filter. I think that when that character that you mentioned says that, he speaks a lot about what you decide, which part of your personality you decide to feed. But I think that Angeles, with her brain and the way her brain works, she isn't quite capable of distinguishing what is socially acceptable and what is not. So she sort of just embodies the entire spectrum of her personality. And I really think that really the challenge for her is for other people around her to value her for what she can give to the police force, and also value just how direct, honest, and open she is as to what she wants.
I think Maria, she has always been living what she thinks she should do. And she has discovered that she doesn't want to live like that anymore. So now she's trying to live with what she wants to do, not what she should do. And that makes so much difference inside of her, because the battle, it's different, right?
Dreams and goals for women look different depending on what the dream and goal is that you have for yourself and what others have for you. And you guys have spoken to it a little bit by talking about your characters in this conversation, but I'm just interested to know, how do you feel being able to embody these types of characters who are being seen for their skill and not their gender?
What they're living through is very much still relevant today. I think that a lot of women, live through life having to fight for a place, having to, fight for their voices to be heard, and for them to not be put into a box as to what, the expectations are. So I think that just these characters all have that going for them. They're all, sort of not letting other people control what they should be.
I love that you use "You Don't Own Me," but it's all in Spanish. And the last time I heard that song associated with a project, it was the First Wives Club.
I remember
So it's
that.
not lost on me that it's dealing with two different projects that are empowering women. How did it come? Why did you decide to use it for this?
Well, my good friend and music supervisor from season 1, Lynn Feinstein, is one of the last things that she recommended that we used before she passed away. And I think one of the beautiful things was, in Mexico in the 70s, there was so much government repression that rock and roll stopped existing, and nobody could make rock and roll. It was almost forbidden. And so one of the things that underground Mexican rock bands would do was they would take American music and do cover versions of them. So most of the Mexican rock and roll from the early 70s are actually cover songs from American songs. And so I wanted to do that, sort of pay tribute to these people that, in the face of repression, of government repression, they still managed to make some beautiful music, and they managed to connect to American music that was making something incredible in the US. And they brought it down, they changed the language, and they made it Mexican. And I think that sort of bridge was something beautiful that Jimena Sariñana and I wanted to rescue with this song.
I love that you did that. And let me just close it out by saying, I had not heard about this story before. I didn't know about this story about these Mexican women in the 70s and how they were being oppressed in that way, the same way that women were being oppressed here. But I'm so grateful that you and Apple TV have brought it to the forefront of my attention, because I'll never forget it now. And I want to applaud you for fleshing it out in such a beautifully crafted way. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. And thank you for giving me your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for your beautiful words. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Bye.
Bye.
I'm telling y'all, it's a really great show. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, go check it out. It's called, what is going on with me and these lights lately? It's called Las Azules. There we go. It's called Las Azules, and it's streaming on Apple TV Plus. All right, let's recap before we get into the next film, shall we? We talked about The End of Oak Street. We talked about Cookie Queens. We talked about The Rivals of Amaziah King. We also talked about The Last House. And we just finished talking about Women in Blue. All right, so now we're going to get into a little Coyote versus Acme. Yay! So Coyote versus Acme. Let me just say that when I was a kid, I used to watch these Warner Brothers cartoons. They would come on in the morning when we were getting ready for school. And so either when my brother was getting ready or if I was already ready, I would just sit down and I would watch Wile E. Coyote and his shenanigans. And so with this David Green directed live action animated film that's produced by James Gunn and Chris DeFaria, I was really digging it. I love that we always watch Wile E. Coyote run after the Roadrunner. We never really understood why he was running after the road. As a little kid, you're like, why is he running after the Roadrunner? Well, this film lets you know that he's running after the Roadrunner because he's wanting him to have dinner. But I also was left wondering, why is E. Coyote always hungry? Like, doesn't he have food? Doesn't he have a house? Doesn't he have a kitchen? I was so confused. So what I'll say about this one is that this particular film, it was supposed to come out, I think, during COVID. And then what happened was it got shelved by Warner Brothers for a tax write-off. And so it's finally now going to debut on August 28th, which is next week, following the special screening that they did at Comic-Con a couple of weeks ago. So it's based loosely on Ian Fraser's 1990 New Yorker article. And the story follows Wile E. Coyote as he finally decides to sue the Acme Corporation after decades of defective products, which we've all seen. We've seen stuff fall on his head. We've seen him blown up. We've seen stuff run over him. All of these things are things that he purchased from Acme and sabotage his pursuits of the Roadrunner. And when he gets to be down on his luck, so he hires this attorney who's a kind of down on his luck attorney, played by Will Forte, fabulously, I might add. And they eventually face off against this corporation law firm whose intimidating boss turns out to be Acme's CEO, played by John Cena. When I tell you, I got my entire giggle on watching this film, and I loved how it makes fun of, but yet makes a really valid point about when you sue big corporations. If you're like the small guy and you're suing a big corporation, how you don't always come out victorious in these situations, and how shystery lawyers can be. Like, sometimes these types of lawyers really have your best interest at heart. But in this particular film, they have billboard lawyers, and they have, lawyers that have your best interest at heart. Will Forte is literally a billboard lawyer that ends up growing a conscience, is what it is. And I could wholeheartedly relate to this, because I'm in the middle of a mess like that right now due to an accident that I had. And the amount of non-attention and miscommunication or non-communication that's happening between me and my lawyers is a lot. But this is fun, y'all. It's fun. Will Forte is playing Kevin Avery, Wiley's lawyer. John Cena, like I said, is playing the Acme CEO. Lana Condor is playing Age Havery. And Eric Balza is the voice of Wile E. Coyote, Foghorn Leghorn. Now, Wile E. Coyote doesn't say a whole lot in this film, but he does a lot. And what I mostly love about Coyote versus Acme is that because there isn't a lot of dialogue from Wile E. Coyote himself, it forces you to pay attention to the plot. It forces you to pay attention to what's actually happening in the course of the film. And that I absolutely love. So remember, it is coming to theaters on August 28th. It is called Coyote versus Acme. Hey, 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 hey. All right. I wanted to tell y'all about this film before we get into this other one that I have been promising y'all forever and a day. Oh no, I've been exposed. Why is this picture not playing? I don't know why it's playing. Okay, let me go back. Let me go back to my thing over here because it's got jokes. Okay. All right. So I wanted to tell y'all about, let me try it one more time. I'm going to try this one more time. The internet is betraying me. Is the picture going to come up? It is not. Okay. I wanted to tell y'all about this documentary that's streaming on Netflix about Charles Manson. So if y'all know who Charles Manson is, he was the guy that was accused and spent some jail time and died in jail for killing Sharon Tate and the LaBiancas. And it was a big deal. They spent a whole movie, Quentin Tarantino did, spent a whole movie centered around those events called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But the reality of the situation is that Sharon Tate was Roman Polanski's wife, and she was 8 months pregnant. And Charles Manson was upset because he wanted a record deal. The person that he thought was in this house wasn't there. The other people were there, and it was a whole mess. But anyway, this Conversations with Charlie Manson is built. It's a documentary that's built together. It's a multi-series documentary. It's only 3 episodes, but it's built together through conversations that Charles Manson had, and the whole premise is built together through these conversations. And what you learn about him is actually quite disturbing. And I start to see stuff about it that I'd never seen before. I was first made aware of the whole Charles Manson thing through Helter Skelter. I read that book, and then that book became a made-for-television series, and it was a big deal at the time. And so I've always been fascinated with why someone thinks it's okay to take someone else's life, which makes me a little bit of a true crime junkie. I'm like 2020 on Friday nights all day long. I'll be watching 2020 tonight too. But anyway, it's called Conversations with Charles Manson, and it's streaming on Netflix. You might want to check it out. So there is a TV show, a little TV show, you might have heard of it. It's called Martin. And it had a character on it named Varnell Hill that was played by Tommy Davidson. Now, if that name does not sound familiar to you, I'm gonna break it down for you. So Tommy Davidson was in Living Color, and it was a sketch comedy show that was on the Fox network. It actually made the Fox network, and those Super Bowl halftime shows that you see actually came about because of In Living Color, because In Living Color wanted to try to do something to get the viewers to stay on their show during the Super Bowl, and Keenen Ivory Wayans created a whole halftime thing to happen, and thus the halftime show was born. So, but anyway, I digress. Tommy Davidson was in that cast. He was one of the members of the original cast, and now he would do some guest stars on other sitcoms, and he did a huge guest star on Martin back in the day, where he played this talk show host named Varnell Hill, and could be likened to Arsenio Hall's show, right? And so Martin goes out to Hollywood. He leaves Detroit. He goes to Hollywood. He's deciding he wants to, make it big in Hollywood. He goes to visit Varnell on his show, and what he thinks is going to happen doesn't happen. And the whole trip to California ends up being a very eye-opening, illuminating experience for Martin. Having said that, the Varnell Hill, they've taken the character of Varnell Hill. The Paramount Plus streaming station has taken the character of Varnell Hill and made a whole sitcom out of it. I think there's about 8 to 12 episodes of it. And the very first one premieres on September 1st on Paramount Plus, and it stars Tommy Davidson, Wendy Raquel Robinson, Kim Whitley. Martin Lawrence makes a cameo as like this Michael Corleone-ish kind of thug, like gangster, and Chris Williams, who is Vanessa Williams's brother, is also on the series. And I got a chance to sit down with Tommy Davidson. I've been wanting to sit down and talk to him for a really long time, and I really like his comedy, and I love the fact that he's a rubber face and that he can do all these things. But I often find that when I talk to stand-up comedians, they're a lot more serious than what you think. They're not like they're not like that in an interview. So me and him sat down, and we had a very serious discussion about Varnell Hill, where Varnell Hill came from, what was his backstory. We talk about stand-ups on stage versus stand-ups on the internet. We talk about a lot of things. So take a look and listen to this interview with the incomparable Tommy Davidson talking about the Varnell Hill show. So as I was watching the show, I was thinking about 2 things. One, what is Varnell's backstory? Like we're introduced to him as this talk show host, but how did he get there?
Varnell was from Inglewood, California.
Mm-hmm.
So he was just a brother over over in that black neighborhood, that black community.
Hmm.
And he put together his own show for broadcast in the community and in LA. So it's more like a PBS kind of show, but he ran it like Arsenio. You see what I mean? So he's able to do that. So when Martin came out there, Martin wasn't in Hollywood. Martin was in Inglewood. See, Inglewood.
Right.
See?
Got it.
But he was so popular in LA, and the new networks were looking for something different. They said, but what about this Barnell Hill guy, man? He had everybody, everybody in LA was going crazy about this guy. What if we gave him his own show now? And so, like, a miracle would happen to somebody. Like, this show happened for me. It was like a miracle, really. For me to be back in the saddle on my own show and starring after all those years with Martin, So he had his own life, and his Kim Whitley is his right hand gal that helped him back from way back. Wendy comes in, and which you saw to bring him up to the future. The executive at the studio was pushing him to do what he wanted him to do, and for some reason, he was able to do his thing his way.
But that always works out, doesn't it? When you
always
stay
works out.
authentically true to who you are,
That's
and
right.
when it's organically part of your spirit and your energy, it always works out. Don't you agree?
Yeah, Bruce Lee said it best. So he said, but if you express yourself from a human standpoint, baby, the road opens wide open. So that's exactly what the story is with Varnell.
I love you for breaking that down for me, because the whole time I'm watching, I'm like, I know there's an episode where he goes back to Inglewood and is honored and all that, but I was sitting there watching it. I'm like, what? I wonder what his backstory is. So thank you for breaking that down. Yeah, thank you for breaking that down for me. I also was curious about the whole writer's room situation, because the writer's room scenes made me holler out loud. They were stupid. How close are those writers? They were dumb. But how close are those writer's room experiences that we see on the show to what you experienced in real life? Is it
that exact?
Okay.
Exact. Exact.
Okay.
You kidding me? I mean, everything's on the line. Everything's on the line, man. Your job is on the line. You want to be funny. You want to make sure your stuff gets on the show. You get paid for it. It's like a locker room in football.
Ooh,
everybody got to be 100%. Yeah, everybody got to be 100% honest with each other in order to bring a win to them. Why you ain't do that? And why you ain't do that? And you man, I'll punch you in your face. But then when they get on the field, they perform as a team.
I love that. I love that so much. Another thing that hit me is, Varnell is trying really hard in the first maybe 2 or 3 episodes of the show of trying to stay relevant, to keep his brand relevant. And he's fighting against that social media. He don't want to be bothered with social media. He's like, nope, that's not my thing. There was at one point I heard you refer to Varnell being on social media as a TikTok Bojangles, right?
Right.
And so how does Tommy Davidson feel about the social media aspect of being a celebrity and having regular people have access to you? Or curating your brand around that?
Right. It's, one of those things in life that you have to come to accept. I don't like getting traffic tickets. I don't like getting a speeding ticket. But I want to drive. You know what I mean? So I got to pay to play. If a cop comes to me and say your headlight was out and give me a ticket, I'm like, all right, man. That's cool. I can pay the ticket because I'm on my way to my job. You know what I mean? So you're not going to have the ideal situation, but you got to remain in forward motion in this life. You got to remain in forward motion. You don't have to, but nothing comes to something stagnant,
Right.
So that's how I relate that.
One last question in a little bit of time I have left. What would you say is the biggest difference, other than social media, because obviously that's a huge difference, between being a stand-up comic when you started and what's happening now?
You can have a bigger audience without leaving the house.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah. But when you leave the house, you got to deal with the audience. So a stand-up comedian knows how to do that, and a social media comedian don't. But they both pay their dividends. So what you gonna do?
Nothing.
I mean, what you gonna do?
What you gonna do? Is that
Yeah,
your
man. They
catchphrase? What
told
you gonna do?
yeah, man. They told a certain group of people you can't vote and you can't do nothing. You know. And then time went by, and we did everything.
You know what, Tommy Davidson? I have always been a huge admirer and fan of your work. And I've always wanted the opportunity to sit down and talk to you just like this in this forum, one on one. You are brilliant. You are an amazing human being and an amazing creator. And it's been my privilege, and I thank you for the privilege for allowing me to speak to you about the Varnell Hill Show today. Thank you so much.
Hey, feelings mutual though.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we both bring our lives to bear. This is just what is it today? It's just Monday.
It's just Monday, but it's actually Friday. I was supposed to stream this on Monday, and life was life, and then it got in the way. But anyway, y'all check out the Varnell Hill Show, which is streaming on Paramount Plus beginning September 1st. All right, my last movie that I'm going to talk about, my last two movies that I'm going to talk about are Mutiny and The Magic Faraway Tree. So let's get into that, shall we? So let me get into Mutiny real fast. So Mutiny is starring my boy Jason Statham. I love me some Jason Statham. He plays Cole Reed, a security operative on the run who stows away on a cargo ship in this action thriller. And he is being framed by his billionaire. He's being framed for his billionaire boss's murder. And he ends up hunting down the enemies and uncovers a massive global corporate and human trafficking conspiracy. Now, what I will tell you is this film I loved everything about this film. I was into it. It was like watching, remember how Bruce Willis was in Die Hard, how he was tracking down the bad guys and just taking them out one by one by himself, right? At one point, there's a scene in the film where the guy who's on a Navy boat was like, so 20 guys got taken down by this one person. I laughed out loud. Anyway, I love that he's like he's giving me Bruce Willis vibes, but on the high seas on a cargo ship container. That's what Mutiny is. And I loved everything about it. The action moved, it wasn't slow. The action scenes were great. Jason was killing, but it would have been nothing without his co-star Annabelle Wallace, because Annabelle Wallace was hanging in there right with him. And I loved seeing Adrian Lester on there. I don't see Adrian Lester in enough films. He's a Black British actor who during the 90s, I want to say, was in a lot of comedies, but and did some drama. Well, he did a drama. It was more like a dramedy. It was called Primary Colors with Kathy Bates and John Travolta, but back in the day. But I liked this film and I really enjoyed it and I was there for it. You know, my critique with most of the films is that it actually could have been a little bit shorter because, you know, but I think this one was a tight 90. It's directed by Jean-Francois Richet, and it is in theaters beginning today. So you can make this one of your weekend things to check out. Now, The Magic Faraway Tree, finally, y'all like, is she ever going to get to it? The Magic Faraway Tree is a beloved book series that has been written and is what Dr. Seuss is for us in America is what The Magic Faraway Tree is to kids that grew up in the UK. And I will let the cast and the director tell you more about it because I just kind of loved it. It was magical in everything that it professes to be. So take a look and a listen to this interview with the cast, Andrew Garfield and Claire Foy, and the director, Ben Gregor, from the Magic Faraway Tree.
Hello, I'm Carla Renata, the Curvy Critic. How are you guys doing today?
All right, doing good. How are you?
I am blessed and highly favored. Yes, I am. I
Yes,
love you
you
sitting
are.
cross-legged, Claire.
I'm
Get
sorry,
it
it's
comfortable,
come to this.
sis.
Yeah.
Listen,
I've got to.
Yeah.
listen, I overstand. It's all good in the hood, okay?
She
Thank you.
overstands.
It is, listen, it is what it is. But this is what I want to talk to you. Andrew, I just got to ask you, bruh.
Yeah.
Please.
Are you going to do a Broadway musical at some point? Because lately you've been singing and carrying on in these movies.
Yeah.
I just need you to do a Broadway musical. Is that on the horizon anytime soon?
If you need it, you are highly favored and highly blessed. It's coming your way.
Just a one man, one woman.
I kind of
Whatever
love
you
how you
want.
say. I kind
Whatever
of
you
love.
want it
Okay,
to be. Whatever you want it to
Okay.
be, I'll do it.
okay, don't play now because I will make it happen. I love these types of films because it makes me go immediately back to my childhood.
Right.
And I'm curious for you, what was the favorite classic fairy tale of your childhood that just brought a smile to your face?
E.T., Hook, the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, the kind of, and then the books, things like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I grew up reading in beanbags with my sister, Lord of the Rings, Narnia, all Roald Dahl, all of these things. It's that combination of kind of domestic, kind of comfort with families striving and food, but then just mad adventures and crazy visual stuff. So I just wanted to bring that all together and make one of those films.
We used to read a lot of Dr. Seuss books when I was a kid. My mum used to read Dr. Seuss to me, which I loved, and also The Hobbit. She used to read The Hobbit to me, the Tolkien book.
That's lovely.
Yeah, lots of really great books. And we read The Famous Five, which is another Enid Blyton book.
I'm the youngest of three children. And I don't really remember being read to. I don't know whether it probably did happen. But maybe by that point, they were quite tired, I think. I actually, weirdly, for me, it's kind of songs. My mum sings some songs, and my granddad used to sing, so I come from a big Irish family, so songs were quite important. So there's quite a few of those that, if I hear them, or I remember them, because my daughter now knows them, that are very, very sweet.
Now, I got to talk about the Land of the Goodies because I'm a foodie, and I just wanted to talk about how you guys went about creating that, and what exactly, how did you decide what goodies were going to go into it, what they were allowed to eat,
It's a good
what
question.
they weren't allowed to eat?
It's a good question. So I wanted trees and plants to be a part of every land somehow. So I didn't want just piles of like a marketplace. I didn't just want like piles of sweets. I wanted to be growing on the trees because it's the Magic Faraway tree and it's like they're growing. And I loved that idea, and blossom and, bamboo. So I loved that framing of the whole thing. And then, I just made all of it edible. I mean, everything was edible. So the kids could just eat stuff. And so, they ate it, because I think when you're working with young performers, they have to experience it. They have to see it and taste it and live it for it to be in their eyes, because you just can't fake it. And so I wanted as real environments as I could, but then also work in a really close way with visual effects to bring them into the process and make them feel part of the team in a really loving way, so that all the great work that they were doing felt as crafted as the physical stuff. So, that had a kind of, I have a background, I studied Japanese at university. I love the aesthetic. What's great about the Magic Faraway Tree is it's a grounded family story about things that we're all doing, trying to connect with our kids, trying to feed them, make them healthy, make them imaginatively healthy, Tim, played by Andrew Garfield, he's a cook, and he's a full-time dad who's trying to grow his kids like kind of into healthy, happy people, and he's struggling. It's hard. The landscape of parenting is tricky. We have screens, we have technology, and we have demands on ourselves. We have to send emails on a Sunday night for work, so we have to give our kids an iPad. No one's to blame here. It's just we have a shared longing for adventure, for coming together, and for making memories together as a family. And I wanted this movie to be about that and be part of that. And families go and see it in the theater, have a great time, buzz about it in the car on the way home, and just connect.
Oh, I love that. And also, when we were kids, well, when I was a kid, my parents were always telling me something not to do. And of course, because I was a kid and they were telling me not to do it, I just had to do it anyway. And one of the things that I did was my mother was like, we were living in Arizona and I decided I was going to run away from home. And it was Arizona. So it was like 100 degrees outside. That lasted all of 10 minutes. But was there a favorite moment for either one of you where you thought you knew better than your parents and you were like, yeah, you can tell me that I can't do that, but I'm just going to try this anyway because I feel like it.
Yeah, I mean, I was told I shouldn't. Me and my friends, we used to skateboard, and we used to skateboard up in London, up in the big city, you know. And I wasn't allowed to go up, so I would sneak up to London often on the train with my school friends. But also just kind of like going out after dark, going out after we're supposed to all be in bed, and like hopping fences, hopping people's backyard fences, swimming in people's like swimming pools, and like leaving stuff on their doorsteps, like just like really naughty stuff like that.
I just think that I probably was getting up to all sorts of things, but I don't know whether anyone ever found out or like I never really knew they were bad. Until now.
This interview is making Claire very sad about her childhood.
It's not. I just can't remember a lot.
Sorry. I'm so sorry, Claire. That is not my intention at all. But hopefully this last question will make up for everything. So I kind of love the family song because it's just so simple and it's so joyful. And so here I go with another question. And hopefully, Claire, you can help a sister out with this one. Do you have a song that just brings you so much joy every time you hear it and it just makes you feel better?
Santa Claus is Coming to Town by Bruce Springsteen. Even when it's not Christmas.
Yeah, it's good.
It's the jingle, 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 jingle. That is a visceral core memory. I love Christmas.
Louis Prima, Just a Gigolo. I love that song. Yeah, Louis Prima. Love Louis Prima. Yeah, anything Louis Prima, really.
Good one. Well, you know, this is my time, and I just want to thank you both for giving me a slice of your time today. It's been my pleasure to talk to you, and I've been wanting to talk to both of you for quite some time. So thank you.
Likewise.
Oh, thank you so much.
Nice to meet you.
All right, y'all. That pretty much does it. The Magic Faraway Tree is in theaters beginning right now. And you can check it out in a theater near you. Let's recap, shall we? I love to recap. You know, it's my favorite thing in the world to do. All right, here we go. Oh, I forgot one other. Well, you can read. I'll do a review of One Night Only, and you can reveal it. You can read the review at the site, at the scroll at the bottom. And as usual, every review that I talk about here online is always written in the written form at that crawl on the bottom. All right, so The End of Oak Tree is in theaters right now. Cookie Queens is in theaters right now. One Night Only is in theaters right now. Check out my review at thecurvyfilmcritic.com. Mutiny is in theaters right now. Women in Blue is streaming on Apple TV Plus. The Last House is streaming on Netflix. Coyote versus Acme will be in theaters on August 28th. And The Magic Faraway Tree is in theaters right now. You can also catch the Disney Princess Concert and very curated special episodes of what went down at this year's D23 on Disney Plus if you have a subscription to that channel. And of course, the Charles Manson, Conversations with Charles Manson, is streaming on Netflix. That was a long one, y'all. I hadn't been here in a couple of weeks. I had 5,000 interviews for you guys, but I said I was going to be here bi-weekly, and I wanted to make sure that I got everything to you because a sister is going to be going where? To the Telluride and the TIFF. So once those get going, it's going to be a little tough, and I'll probably do something live from both of those places, just so that y'all can see the beauty that I get to see at this time of the year once fall hits. All right. Love, peace, and hair grease. I will see you next time. Thank you so, so very much for tuning in, whether it's in real time or after the fact. I love you. Thank you, Brandon, for always popping by and leaving a comment for me. And I will catch you on the flip side. Deuces.
Hold up. Wait a minute. I wish you love, peace, and hair grease.
Love,